Hey, Shane.
Yeah.
Have you seen How the Grinch Stole Christmas starring Jim Carrey?
Yeah, I have. And you know what? Fuck that. Let's talk about Man on the Moon featuring Jim Carrey, as well as the Netflix documentary Jim and Andy.
Okay.
I saw Man on the Moon and Jim and Andy several years ago, and those two things have stuck in my head for years at this point, and I have been wanting. This has been something that I've wanted to show you for a while, and here we are.
Here we are. I have now watched them, as is the premise of the podcast you're watching, you big dumb idiots.
Right. So starting off, I would like to talk a little bit about Jim Carrey, our feelings about Jim Carrey as a performer and actor. And then also I want to hear about your knowledge of both of these things going into the movie.
Yeah.
So first things first, Jim Carrey, what do you think? What's your...
I think Jim Carrey is an infinitely talented person.
Yeah.
Like in both dramatic and comedic roles.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, talk about like a range of a career of like
right.
from things like Ace Ventura and Liar Liar, The Mask, Dumb and Dumber to
Eternal Sunshine.
Sunshine, The Man on the Moon. Like,
yeah.
The man is Sonic the Hedgehog. The man is so talented, and so he's one of the most like specifically talented men of all time too.
Yeah.
Like, nobody does what he does quite like him.
Right.
I really like Jim Carrey. I think he's a complete weirdo, especially after watching Jim and Andy.
Yeah.
And even past just Jim and Andy's connection, it's like him as a person. I think he's a complete weirdo.
Yeah.
Like it's a little uncomfortable and weird.
Yeah.
But that's
I think
I grew up on his movies. You know, I've seen a lot of them a lot of times.
For sure. Like I think he is like genre defining like actor, you know? Like I think he created an entire subgenre of character actors, you know, leading man, character actor, funny man, you know what I mean? Where it's like, like you're completely right. He's so like multi-talented. Like I think he's a handsome guy who's really funny and does these amazing impressions and has a wonderful singing voice, and like he's just so, you know, that his physicality is insane. Like like I think he as a talent within the industry, I think there are like very few that are even remotely comparable in the way that like nobody can really do what he does. Like nobody has that same kind of like physicality that he does.
Yeah, like, and I respect a lot, and I don't know how strict this is, but Jim and Andy a little bit, he talked about, and I didn't really know this, like when he would do stand-up or whatever, he didn't really like write anything. It was way more improv. Let's be goofy. Let's be silly. Let's see what I come up with. Like that's a really cool concept for somebody who gets up and does stand-up comedy. Yeah. Not improv. Right. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's cool. I think he is one of, like you said, one of those like subgenre defining, kind of changed the game actors in a way that he's not really given credit for. Yeah. I don't think he's given credit, but that run he had in the 90s, man, like
unbeatable,
changed stuff for a lot of like comedy guys. Yeah. And then he kind of fell off the face of the earth for a little bit and did Sonic and Sonic 2, which he's great in both of those movies. Like legitimately, he's wonderful in those movies. Yeah. But yeah, I think he is. I don't think he gets the credit he deserves for how truly talented he is.
Yeah, I think he opened doors for people like Jack Black. You know what I mean? Like those kinds of comedians, like where it's like they're just so like larger than life and like have that like. You know, like there's so many other things to like about all of these performances and these performers, but it's like I think he opened doors for like people like that. You know? Yes,
absolutely.
I think he's a fascinating individual who I don't know if I care for.
Yeah, like there's some actors I feel like would be really fun to like get dinner with.
Yeah.
I don't think Jim Carrey's one of those actors.
Again, fascinating dinner. It would be a fascinating conversation, but I think I
feel like
hate it.
watching Jim Carrey in conversation in a somewhat structured way would be really fun.
Yeah.
But like sitting down and shooting the shit with him does not seem like a good time to me.
Yeah, because like it's like, so what was shooting The Grinch like? And I feel like he would give you this like, man, that wasn't even me. That was like that was Jim Carrey, capital J, capital C. I'm a different, it's like,
Yeah,
okay.
you're like, I get it. I just wanted to know what it was like.
I wanted to, what's Ron Howard like? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, what was it like being with Taylor Momsen when she was 7? You know what I mean? Like, like whatever. Like, yeah.
He's gotten. I don't know. He's gotten. I think of like my list is usually like Bill Hader, David Fincher. Not the David Fincher. I think would be a fun like hang.
Oh,
but just because he's.
I think he'd be a wild hang.
I think he'd be a wild hang, but I think you'd have to be like pure. I think he'd have to be into it if you won a contest and got to have dinner with David Fincher.
He would kill himself. There's no reason. There's no world where he would.
But like
do that.
Bill Hader would be awesome. Jack Black would be awesome.
Yes.
Like there's all these guys that I always think. Andy Samberg feels like he'd be a really fun hang. Like all of these actors. Jim Carrey does not feel like that to me.
No.
At least not now.
No.
Especially after Jim and Andy.
So I'd be actually before we get into Man on the Moon, I would love to know, did you know anything about Andy Kaufman?
Other than the fact that Andy Kaufman was a very famous comedian,
yeah,
I knew nothing about Andy Kaufman.
Gotcha,
he was like a legitimate, like, I love comedy, I love stand up, I love like comedy guys like SNL, that kind of stuff. But he was like a big blind spot for me of people I just was not really aware of.
Yeah. I there was a time where I was, really, really deep into the history of comedy and that kind of stuff, and like really kind of like diving deep into that kind of stuff. And so like I knew about Andy Kaufman, I knew about some of his like super weird avant-garde, like everything, all the wrestling stuff, like I was familiar with, like, so it's like I wasn't like super knowledgeable, like especially like some of his older stuff and like him playing Latka on Taxi, like I didn't really know all that much about. I'd never seen Taxi, so it's like I had some familiarity with Andy Kaufman before I had seen Man on the Moon. But then so like going into Man on the Moon, like what did you know about it? What were your thoughts going in?
I knew about the weird, the Jim and Andy side of it. Yeah. I knew about, now I didn't know the extent of it. I didn't know about the other fake people that Andy Kaufman created. I didn't know about any of it. I didn't know about Tony Clifton. And I just knew that he was possessed by the spirit, whatever. Yeah. I knew that. And so watching it was really fascinating, but man, I liked Man on the Moon a lot.
Yeah.
Like I really liked that movie. It's like, I mean, it's a Milos Forman, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, of course it's going to be good, but I thought it was like in a similar way that like Dream Scenario, which is a recent movie, kind of has this like weird editing.
Yeah.
I thought Man on the Moon did that in like a much more like, not like Diet, but like lightweight, you know what I mean? Where it just would like
the movie itself isn't as avant-garde.
But it like had really weird, funny, interesting cuts that feel wrong but work. You know what I mean? Like I thought the movie was really cool in that way, in a way that a lot of like biopics are not.
Yeah.
And I thought Jim Carrey was like fantastic in the role.
Yeah.
I really think he's really good in it.
Yeah.
Watching Jim and Andy is a weird experience.
Yeah. It's like it's hard to like talk about one without talking about the other.
It really is.
Yeah, like when I watched it, I liked Man on the Moon, and I like Man on the Moon. I liked it more before I saw Jim and Andy, but I still wasn't like in love with it. Like I wouldn't call it like about it.
Heyo. Oh God, he's frozen. Okay, I'll do both parts.
He's just like stand in front of me.
Whoa.
Yeah, like I wasn't like over the moon about it or anything like that, but I did like it. I did see the quality, and I did really like. I did really think that Jim Carrey's, but again, like I thought Jim Carrey's performance was really good and really strong, and then like the more I've learned about Andy Kaufman, the less I like that performance, because in a lot of ways it feels like it feels like a comedy performance, or it feels like a performance from a comedian, where it's like he turns up the dial a few clicks too high on some of the mannerisms. Like that is what comedians do when they're doing impressions, is you take a few acute observations and you turn the dial up on them. You know what I mean? Like when you're doing a Trump, you've got the lips, you've got the crazy New York accent, you've got the, the hands, like you've got all these like small details that you're just turning the dial up to 100. And I feel like Jim Carrey, being very famous impressionist, impressionist, whatever.
Either way.
Whatever. Turns the dial just a few clicks too high on some of those things, where it's like, you watch footage of Andy Kaufman and like he's a little kind of off and a little kind of awkward, but like not that much, where it's like you see Jim Carrey as Andy Kaufman and you see these scenes of him like both on stage as the performer and behind the scenes as the man.
Yeah.
And in many ways he's still performing as the man.
Yeah.
But it's like he just turns the dial up on some of these like almost like neurodivergent kind of, where I'm just like, it just doesn't feel, it feels like an impression sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I think I kind of had the benefit of not really seeing much Andy Kaufman stuff before, so I just watched it like as a performance first instead of like an impersonation of some kind of a real human being.
Yeah.
So I think I benefited from that a little bit when it comes to his performance.
Right.
Because I think there's a lot in there that's really quiet, that's really good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know.
I like how this movie structures I like how this movie is structured, especially like as a biopic. Essentially, it doesn't try to cover the entirety of his life. Like, yes, we see him as a child, but that is like one scene.
It literally gives you one scene, but that one scene gives you all the context you need for his relationship with his father.
Yeah.
Like,
right. 100%.
That's it. You just get it.
Yeah. So it's like, I really appreciate that, because like so many biopics now, it's like, we're going to tell you his entire life. And like, and I mean this in the best possible way. And like, I don't want to sound shrewd, but it's like, as far as how the movie is structured, it helps that his life was shorter.
Yeah.
Because they're not trying to cover 40 years. It's like, I think
they're covering this like burn he had of like
Yeah.
breaking onto the scene, becoming the bad guy, all that kind of stuff.
Because like in totality, I think like his on screen, like actually like on the big stage, career lasted only a decade or two.
Yeah.
It wasn't all that long. And I also think that the movie does, I mean, like it's hard with biopics where it's like, it feels like it cuts out a lot of a lot of like other things that Andy Kaufman did, like just as like, bit parts on other shows and stuff. It's like, and you see some of those clips in Jim and Andy where it's like, you see him on, whatever, I can't remember, the honeymoon game or whatever it is. I can't remember what it's called, where it's like, the one, person who's looking for a date, and there's like three guys that she's interviewing that she can't see.
Yeah.
It's like he did a bunch of stuff like that. He did a bunch of late night performances and things.
Yeah.
It's like, and it only really shows like little slivers.
His little SNL bit, his little,
right. Where it's like, yeah, he was on SNL like a dozen times. Like, like there are things like that where it's like he did more, and I feel like the movie wants you to think that like he was really kept in this like really avant-garde corner of the entertainment
that
industry.
is true. Like watching this cold, you really feel like this dude did one thing, like you know what I mean, in a way that I picked up on after watching Jim and Andy, just getting like a little glimpse into the broader stuff of him.
So yeah, it felt like it was like this dude did Taxi and then he was crazy, like. And that's like partially true. Yeah. But like, and again, like as a biopic, you really kind of have to like choose what the story you're telling.
Which is like, a time and a place in someone's life is I think that's kind of the problem with a lot of music biopics. Yeah. Is that they're like you exactly said, you start as a kid and then you get them all the way through their death and you're like, God, none of this felt like it worked.
Right. It's like there are so few music biopics that I actually like enjoy at this point, partially because of Patrick H. Willems like ruined them for me in a good way. Yeah. As well as Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story.
Wonderful.
I mean, yeah, like it just every time I see a movie do that again, I'm like, guys, you gotta stop.
You gotta try something new, please.
It's like, so I appreciate, I haven't seen it yet and we will watch it for the podcast. but Rocket Man, like
and
spinning the formula even slightly.
Rocket Man is, I was talking about this earlier today. Rocket Man is every music biopic, every structural choice, everything, except it is a musical and it is filled with way more style.
Yeah.
And that makes it work better. You know what I mean? Like
it's what's his name? Rocket, the musician.
Elton John.
Elton John. It's Elton John.
Well, and I will also
dude had style.
I will also say Elton John is incredibly hard on himself in the movie.
Yeah.
Like I so much respect for that because he was involved with it like heavily, and he did not put a lens on him in a very bright way a lot of the time. That movie is very much about the mistakes you made, and you know what I mean? Like, and because you watch some of these other ones, you watch
Bohemian Rhapsody.
Bohemian Rhapsody, and it makes them all out to be saints and angels, and you're like, nah, man.
It makes all the surviving members look like, oh, well, I'm going to go home to my wife instead of being a drug-addicted piece of shit like you, Freddie.
It's like, no, come on.
No. Like, okay, there might have been a time in your careers where that was the case, but don't tell me
the whole time.
And then that's what it makes it look like. We're just here for the music, man, and you're not. It's like, dude...
Yeah,
I hate that. That really frustrates me about that.
And look, I'll give Man on the Moon that it definitely paints a weird lens on him a lot of the time.
Yeah,
like,
no, it like
it's unafraid of being a little critical of him as a man.
Yeah, no, I think it's very clear on not always making him the best dude. You know what I mean? Like,
and I think like look, I think for people who are watching this, like, explain real quick the thing that happened with this, like why Jim and Andy is a documentary.
So
like,
yeah, so Jim Carrey decided, well, I don't even know if he would say that it was a decision, but he feels that he was possessed in a certain way by the spirit of Andy Kaufman. And so he felt like the way that he, like literally the documentary opens on him saying like, you know, he's sitting on the beach and he says like, you know, where would Andy be? And he sees these dolphins, you know, breach the water. And then he says like from that point on, like Andy took over and Jim was gone.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay. Okay.
Yeah, because like for me, the confusing part is that was what I knew. I knew it's like people described this as Jim Carrey believes he was possessed by the spirit of Andy Kaufman and then played him and caused all these issues on set and stuff. Now, like when you watch it, you hear him talk about it. Sometimes it feels like he's just gotten really lost in the method.
Yeah.
And then other times he's very much referring to it as he was possessed by the spirit of Andy Kaufman, and just you're like, oh, okay. And watching it is hard. Watching Jim and Andy after watching Man on the Moon is like hard because you're like, wow.
Yeah.
None of this was necessary.
Yeah.
Like at all. Jim Carrey, you're a very talented guy. You didn't have to sit there and be like, you're talking about me like I'm not here. Like I'm Andy. What do you mean? Like, dude.
It's like, look, if you want people to call you your character name when you're on set, okay, I can wrap my head around how that might keep you in a headspace. But to
make you feel like a different person, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
right. Yeah, like but there's a rationale there.
But everything else, like the constant, okay, like to boil it down to my frustration. Okay, hold on. To structure this, do we want to talk about method first and how we feel about the method, or do we want to talk about like how Jim Carrey? What he did during this.
Let's talk about what he did and then talk about it from like a production, like people who have worked with actors, people who have been actors, people who have done that before. Like, let's go there.
So if you've seen Man on the Moon, you've seen Jim and Andy, you know that Tony Clifton is this weird other character that Andy Kaufman and Bob Zmuda played. And so like, people
who is like a total asshole, who's like
this villain version,
and Andy Kaufman made it like contractually obligated that he appear in things and like show up, and sometimes everyone believed Andy Kaufman was this guy, and then Andy Kaufman would show up at events where he's because his writing partner.
Yes,
it's like this very deep, elaborate bit that is genuinely like a funny idea.
Yeah. Like there's pieces of that like that idea, like honestly,
I'm talking just Andy Kaufman now, not even the
Andy
movie.
Kaufman. I think that's super funny. I think that's super weird and cool and wild, and I'm super into that. But then when Jim Carrey was Tony Clifton, it's like he was Tony Clifton, the asshole drunk piece of shit all the time.
Like when they introduce him in Jim and Andy showing up on set for the first time, he has a bag on his head, driving a car, going like, I got it, and like ramming the car into the side of a studio stage.
Yeah.
Like he's like oh, whatever, and then he would get up and walk into the booth and just play his music super loud, or the makeup room, with all the other actors sitting there like trying to prepare for the day.
Drinking, smoking,
literally like one. They show a part where he's literally like passed out on a couch, and they have to pick him up and drag him outside.
Yeah,
and you're just like, dude, what the fuck?
And then there's the other like, actually, like, it's hard for me. Like, this is going to sound like the thing that I actually think is kind of morally reprehensible is the fact that Jim Carrey, as Andy Kaufman, I'm using air quotes here, as Andy Kaufman, actually spoke to the family of the deceased Andy Kaufman, saying, telling them, oh, I love you and I miss you, and like having these conversations with these people that miss their family member, including Andy Kaufman's daughter, who never got to meet Andy Kaufman while he was alive. So Jim Carrey spent like a couple hours with her, telling her things like, I love you, I've always loved you, like having this conversation with her. And this person thinks she's having a conversation with the spirit of her father,
who she never met,
and he's telling her things like, I love you. It's like, that is like morally reprehensible, if you ask me.
It is hard. And look, like the documentary paints as the family was very supportive of this.
Yeah.
And I'm confused by that, because that would like anger me. I don't know, whatever. To each their own. But as a like step back view of that, weird and awful. Like there's no way around it. It's just uncomfortable and bad. Like Andy Kaufman's girlfriend or whatever was the documentarian taking the foot, and like she seemed fine with all this too.
Like literally everybody who's involved seems like they're okay with it, and they were like, Bob Zmuda was a part of the production, was a part of the documentary. Like you said, his girlfriend was the documentarian. Like his family, like Andy Kaufman's family, like had
the only person that seemed like they had an issue with it, who knew Andy Kaufman in real life, was the wrestler. What's his name?
Jerry Lawler.
Yeah, like he would get like literally assaulted Jim Carrey on set.
Yeah.
And it's like, he's the one that was like, we were friendly in real life. Yeah. Like, why are you?
It's stuff like that where it's like, where it feels like Jim Carrey is taking these weird leaps into, it's like, that's the thing is, you can read a book about him, you can interview his friends about him, you can watch everything he did on late night, but you don't know who that man really was. You never met him, you didn't know him. So to pretend or to think that you could embody him in that way enough to make these choices as if Andy Kaufman,
with real life people,
with real life human beings that actually knew this man, like specific, like again, like the stuff with Jerry Lawler, the wrestler. It's like, yeah, we were friends. Like, what the, you know what I mean? Like he was always really respectful and like called me Mr. Lawler, and like it was always like a, we had this on screen fight, but behind the scenes we were friendly. Like,
yeah, we staged this. It was a bit.
Yeah,
like.
And then Jim Carrey is like, yeah, exactly what you said, like antagonizing him and throwing water at him and his
spitting
girlfriend,
spitting
on him and calling him names. And
it's like throwing water at his girlfriend, dude. It's like,
what's wrong with you?
She had nothing to do with any of this. Why are you?
It's like, again, like there's,
it's like one thing coming out of the booth and being like, hey, Lawler, like for a second, and then being like, hey, I'm normal. You know what I mean? Like putting something on his back during, it's like all so weird and strange and wrong.
Yeah. If you feel like you need that for your performance.
Yeah.
That you need consent for that.
Yeah. Go talk to him and be like, hey, like is this okay with you? Like, I'm going to, you know what I mean? I'm going to come at you hard.
Yeah. And then the other weird part of it is when he's Tony or Andy talking about Jim.
Yes.
And where it's like, where they're like revealing these like, I actually think he's really sad. Like, I think he's, I think it's a mask.
He's not well.
Yeah. He's not well. It's like, what is this, dude?
Yeah.
It just feels so unprofessional.
It's like, look, what was the idea? Look, because he, quote unquote, I don't know for real, but he claims to believe that he was really possessed by these people.
Yeah.
At home, was he sitting there giggling like, I've committed to this bit just like Andy Kaufman would? Like, that hard to that degree? It's like, is that what he's sitting at home thinking? Because is that the idea behind it from a logical standpoint? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just uncomfortable.
Honestly, I don't believe in that kind of possession.
Yeah.
Like, just personally, like, if you believe that, whatever. Like, I'm not making any judgments or anything like that. But if it were me, if I were a betting man, I would bet that he thinks that Jim Carrey did that as a send up to Andy Kaufman.
Yeah.
Like, to be like, Andy would do a bit like this. I'm going to do a bit like this.
Yeah.
Like, he would commit this hard. I'm going to commit this hard.
Yeah, it's that the one funny thing that they did, I legitimately think,
Yes.
as this is the Playboy Mansion.
Yeah.
Where he like shows up to the Playboy Mansion and they're like, oh, it's Jim Carrey as
Tony Clifton.
And he's like going through, he's like, wow, taking pictures with everyone. They're like, oh, it's Jim. It's part of a bit. They'll use whatever promotion for the movie, I guess.
Yeah.
And then an hour later, Jim Carrey shows up.
Amazing.
And he gets kicked. It's like, that as a bit is so good.
That's good.
It's so funny. That is what he would have done.
Yes, exactly.
Like that level of commitment to that, where it's like it's this meta 6 levels deep thing where no one knows if it's a joke or not, and everyone thinks it is, and then Jim shows up and he's like, I'm right here.
Yeah.
And he's right there, and they're like, get out, you're not well, you know what I mean? It's like, that is so funny.
I mean, Jim Carrey,
and it harms no one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I get whatever their reputation, it's the Playboy Mansion, I don't know.
Right.
But
it's like and there's like gray area in sections where it's like it is Jim Carrey as Tony Clifton breaking onto the Amblin lot to go see Steven Spielberg. It's like, did anybody get hurt? No.
But it's fucked.
Is it weird and bad?
I hate. There's very few exceptions to this, but I hate. There are some. I hate messing with people in public comedy. Messing with people who have nothing to do with anything comedy. It's like, you're just being an asshole.
Yeah.
Like, you are just being a dick. It bothers me like a lot.
Yeah. So it's like, with that in mind, like, whether it was method or it was actually thinking he was possessed. Because it's like, and then it's the scene where he's talking about like it's Jim Carrey talking about like, this is like during the filming of the movie. He's talking about, he's like smoking. He's like, I don't smoke. Like, I don't do this.
And then
and then he does these fucking like fake. I'm sorry, it just feels fake to me. Where he does these like possession faces, and he's like Tony all of a sudden, and somebody literally was like, no, not today. We don't want this today.
Yeah.
And then he goes and smacks himself on the face, and he's Jim Carrey again. It's like, come on,
like they're like actual, dissociative identity disorder. Like, there are things where they'll do where they're kind of like there's like this drift moment. Like, if you ever watched anyone do it, it's like a fascinating thing to like watch
I've never
someone.
actually seen that,
If you watch someone with DID like drift in between their personalities and talk about that experience, like, it's genuinely a fascinating thing. I highly recommend, because it's like, DID is not as scary as people. It's it is just an actual thing that people have. Like, it's not split. It's not,
just
you know what I mean?
You don't turn into an axe murderer. You're just a different version
a different
the same
person. It's and I don't understand it, but I'm just saying the media has made it out to be something scary, and I think he's doing a bad caricature of it. Yeah. In these moments. But it's like that.
Because he does not have DID.
No, he doesn't. He just is being a fucking weirdo.
Yeah.
Like, he's not he doesn't have a disorder. He's just Jim Carrey being kind of an asshole. Like, kind of to just completely. And it's like when he shows up on set during the scenes where, Andy Kaufman is dying of cancer. Yeah. And he's like, and they're like wheeling him on and he's doing it. It's like, so wait, if you're possessed by the spirit of Andy Kaufman, why is Andy Kaufman the spirit of Andy Kaufman in these moments? You know what I mean? It's like, I get lost in what you think is happening, Jim. It's like, but look, don't get me wrong. If in those moments you need to like get there, that's different. But but doing that and then expecting all this sympathy from people for being, it's like, no.
It's like hard to watch the scenes with like Danny DeVito, because he's playing. Danny DeVito knew Andy Kaufman. He was on Taxi with Andy Kaufman, and then he played Andy Kaufman's agent,
manager, whichever it was,
in the movie. And so it's like, it's hard to watch those scenes, because it's like, honestly, like the way that I read Danny DeVito. It's like he's playing along with it and he's like going along with what Jim Carrey is doing, but it does not feel like he appreciates it. Like I don't think he agrees. I don't think he.
There are times where he like looks at the camera and he's just like,
and he's like, this is bizarre. Like this is bizarre.
Yeah.
Like, and the other thing that I thought was just like really weird and uncomfortable, it's where he's like he gets into a fight with the actor who plays his dad, and they're both in character as Andy and his dad
in the makeup room, in the makeup trailer.
They're having this screaming fight, and like the makeup artist is like crying because she's like, that just reminds me of my dad, and then like Andy Jim is like laughing after. It's like it's just bizarre.
Yeah, and like don't worry, like the thing should be like remember this and keep understanding this is the makeup room. A lot of actors put music in and sit there and get it done.
Yeah,
because that's where they do their final prep for starting to work. So all these other actors that are sitting in this makeup trailer trying to get in the headspace to perform.
Yeah.
Are just being like, literally they cut to a few of them and they're like, when he's blasting the music as Tony Clifton, and he's just like, he's just looking at the camera like.
Yeah, Bob Hirsch just like covers his ears. It's like,
it's like, look, there's you see a lot of fun actors behind the scenes, a lot of TV shows where they've like known each other forever. This is every day for them, where they're like having fun in the makeup. But there's a lot of actors who don't. That is where they sit down, they make mild chit chat for 5 minutes with the makeup artist, and then they get in the zone.
Yeah,
like that is where they feel. A lot of actors feel like that's where they transform into the character.
Yeah,
when they get done up for it and they walk out, they feel like I'm much more in it. And
it's like a Batman. Colin Farrell talks about like putting on the makeup. He feels like having that.
He all of a sudden he
feels like the Penguin.
Yeah,
and I thought that was cool.
Jake Gyllenhaal's a lot like that. He said he did a boxing movie called Southpaw that's pretty good. Pretty good to really good, depending on who you ask. It's a good movie. But he said he did not feel like Billy Hope ever until he put on the socks when he was in the ring. He's like, whatever reason I put those socks on, and he's like, because they were like specific, like boxers wear like specific kind of socks. He said he put those on, all of a sudden he felt strong, like he felt bigger and stronger and ready to like perform it.
Fascinating.
And it's just stuff like that for actors. It's weird, like physical things. Because Jake Gyllenhaal's not a method actor, but he does method in a healthier way, which we'll talk about. In what method actually is. Him, John Bernthal's that way. Quite a few actors do it in the correct way.
Yeah.
And then a lot of actors do it as assholes. Like,
let's talk about method. Like,
I think you have the best point I've ever heard on why this version of method acting is dumb. But
what is method acting? Like,
method acting, very casually put. There's all kinds of theory about it and Stanislavski and
levels
and all this stuff. But the idea that most people realize is like, Daniel Day-Lewis is playing Lincoln, so the entire time they're shooting, he is President Abraham Lincoln.
He wakes up as Lincoln and goes to bed as Lincoln.
He talks to his wife as Lincoln. Yeah. He walks in the walk. He talks in the voice.
Yeah.
He has people address him as Mr. President or whatever. That. I think for My Left Foot, when he played a character in a wheelchair, he lived in a wheelchair the entirety of the time. He had people carry him around. He had people, everything. It's like that level. And there's really bad degrees of it where people have been awful to their co-stars and stuff. And then, but the general idea is you just live and breathe as the character you are playing and have people address you that way. Yeah. When you leave, you don't let it go. You keep it. And that is like the really extreme version of it.
And so explain a little bit like the John Bernthal version of it. Like what does that kind of look like?
What John Bernthal, he has one of my favorite quotes, which I will say, I'll read it after you talk about kind of your feelings on it. But John Bernthal is like a trained actor. Yeah. Like he actually knows what he's talking about. And John Bernthal, specifically when he played Frank Castle as, Punisher, he said in a lot of the heavier scenes, he just kept to himself on set. He made it very clear with everyone. He's like, I'm not mad at anybody. I'm going to be on myself. I'm going to keep in the mood of the character. You can call me John. I don't care if you need to talk to me. Directors, writers, makeup people, come on over. But I'm not going to be talking to you. Yeah. I'm just going to I'm going to be over here, reserved, quiet. If I need to step out, I'm just going to step out. Yeah. It for him and for how it actually is supposed to be is about maintaining the mood. Yeah. Like if you've
staying in the moment, staying in the emotion.
If you've ever been on a great set, which I will give like the short film that I last directed that we're just about, finishing up and stuff. there were days and sections of that where we were shooting where like my directing professor came in to like see how everything was going on the first day. He's like, you have a great attitude, like, because everybody bought on. It was a very heavy scene we were starting with, and everyone treated it like it was actually serious. They gave the actors space to do their thing. They let the actors be the person kind of communicating the energy. Our AD kept things quiet while we were working so they could get in the mood. I came in and I would talk to just the actor and then just like,
I loved that.
It would just be like the entire mood on set was just that. And then there were times where it was a little more fun and everyone was a little bit happier and more into it. We would close set there was a day we were filming some very intense things. We closed set. The only people allowed in the room were the people who absolutely had to be in there. And we would play like music if the actor wanted us to, things like that. It's like, it's very much about like maintaining the mood and we weren't even doing, the actors weren't even doing method on that on my set. We just tried to keep the atmosphere on set, and that's what method acting at its best and at its correct way is what actors do. They just try to keep themselves in that mindset. And that's what it is. That it's a great method. I understand that completely. I'm in full support of that as an idea. Whatever like an actor needs to get in the headspace, as long as it's not harming or hurting or hindering anyone else, I don't care. Do what you got to do.
Yeah, as long as everybody is consenting to what's happening.
Everyone's understanding, so no one's getting blown up on when they look at the actor wrong. Like,
so like here is my thing with method acting. Very rarely, if not almost all the time, the only people who are method acting assholes. It's like only when you're playing the Joker or like you're playing these evil asshole.
And to be clear on the Joker one, not Heath Ledger, Joaquin Phoenix. Heath Ledger was like skateboarding behind the scenes and stuff. Like
it's like your own what's his face in Suicide Squad?
Jared Leto. That one as well.
Where it's like they're never like Tom Hanks didn't method act for Mr. Rogers. Like you're only method acting as an asshole. So you feel like, or it feels like they're trying to get away with being an asshole on set because, I'm method. So I get to send you gross, disgusting stuff in the mail. I get to scream at you.
It's like actors want to experience what it's like to do. And you're like,
no. It's like, and I'm
sure
sure their argument would be, as a normal person, I'm a nice person. So when I'm playing an evil person, I have to get deeper into that because I don't understand that as a normal person. I have to get deep. And I'm like, it feels like such a fucking cop out. It's like, no, like, I'm sorry, playing the Joker does not mean that you get to mistreat the people around you. Playing a psychopath serial killer doesn't mean you get to mistreat the people around you. Playing Andy Kaufman, the avant-garde comedian, does not mean you get to mistreat the people around you. Like the makeup artists did not consent to Tony Clifton coming up in there playing music and being piss drunk,
smoking and drinking. No,
they didn't consent to that. They thought they were going to be on set with Jim Carrey,
the professional actor, not fucking Tony Clifton. Because I bet your ass Andy Kaufman would not be like that. No, Andy Kaufman wouldn't do that to people doing their jobs. No. You know what I mean? Like, yes, he's weird, and yes, he'll may take some other stuff too far, but it's not that. It's not.
Yeah, it's like it is so hard for me to watch these performances, and I'm like, was this worth it?
No,
like it just isn't. It's not worth mistreating the people around you for. Look, movies are my life. I love movies, but like,
it's just a movie.
Are better, or more important, or the way that you treat the people around you are more important than the movie that you're making.
What's that Denzel Washington quote where he's like, "Look, being an EMT is hard. Whatever that he lists like 3 or 4 like being a doctor is hard. Being on your feet 12 hours a day is hard. We're making movies. We're lucky."
Yeah.
He's like, treat the people around you with kindness. Like you're not. I found the John Bernthal thing. To be clear, John Bernthal doesn't say he does method acting. That's just kind of his method of acting. But the quote that I love is he said, "I guarantee you that making everyone call you by your character name and not showering for 8 months was not what Stanislavski had in mind with method, the method." And that sums it up so well. Yeah. It's like that. No, dude, just the whole idea of that is mood and attitude and keeping, if your character's alone or keeping to yourself for a little bit. A lot of actors do it in prep. Like I know Michael B. Jordan for Killmonger said he like grew out his hair, like actually grew it out.
Yeah.
And like kind of just kept to himself for a month or two where he was, had the attitude and had the, the character's mindset and really dove into that side of it. That's method acting, man. It's just like trying to experience what it's like.
Yes.
But not experience what it's like to receive, not to give. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like that's what it is. Because that's why people do what they do is because of what they're receiving. It's and I can't imagine being a director having to work in that situation. Like you can see Milos like pissed off and angry and like I didn't even want Jim Carrey for this. Like
oh man, I had a thought.
Oh, sorry.
No, you were so fine. I was like, I kept trying to jump in, but you had a really good point. You were all good. That was on me. Fudge sickle. Anyways, this is a quote this is a review from Seth Worley on Letterboxd, and I think this is a wonderful encapsulation of exactly why I dislike method, and I'm not thrilled with Jim Carrey as part of this. Watching this simply confirmed something for me. Be kind, be professional, bring out the best in others before yourself, because there's no guarantee that what you're making will be anything worth remembering. So ensure that the actual making it will be. That is perfect explanation. It's like, and that's my thing with Man on the Moon. I think it's good. I don't think it's amazing. I don't think it's groundbreaking.
I would never call it like one of my favorite movies.
No.
I would be like, I like this. I would recommend this to people.
It's a good movie, and it is an interesting story. Andy Kaufman was a very interesting person.
Yeah.
Like all of these things are great. You're not like it's not worth what you're putting people through.
Yeah.
This movie is not worth what you're putting people through.
Yeah. Absolutely not. And I don't think any movie is, right? Like that's one of the weird sides of like Werner Herzog.
Yeah.
Where you hear the sagas these people are going through to make his movies, and you're like, that was not worth it, homie. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But if the whole cast and crew is into it and consenting to it, it's like, then there's something to be said about that too.
Yeah.
But man, like I think of even like stuff I've worked on that I'm not overly proud of. Like I still had the experience. And you know what? You know what gets you far in making movies and in any industry of any career is exactly what he's saying. Bring out the best in others first.
Yeah.
Like again, another example, this movie I was making in college, we would all help each other with projects. Like because you get to know people. They're like, hey, you do this, come out. And so I told one of my friends, I was like, hey, whatever you need, I love your work. I love the script. Whatever you need, I will come just be a PA for you if you want. And they had me come out and be the key grip on their set. And it was like a big production.
Yeah.
Like, so I came in key gripped. I'd never key gripped before. I came into that so prepared. I was like spent the entire day before like building out kits and stuff. I was the one who showed up with tools. None of them had tools. And I was like, I showed up like 20, 30 minutes early to set every day. Like I was literally, other than the first AD, I was the only one there at the beginning, on days like that, you know what I mean? I just made it a point to show up for them because I loved what they were doing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was like, whatever I can do to help you make this what you want it to be.
Yeah.
I'm in. And because of that, they came and did a job on my set. The first AD who was like, didn't originally, she was like, I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if I'll have time unless I'm paid. And we're like, we just don't have it in the budget.
Yeah.
After that, she came out and first AD'd mine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? She was just like, I liked working with you.
Yeah.
And because it was all because I came into it from the perspective of, I want to make you get what you want.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You just never go into these things self-serving.
Yeah.
You always have to come out and be like, look, as a director, I'm sure you feel this way too. It's like, man, everything with the actors, I just want to I want to meet them on their level.
Yeah.
Like, because you work a way you work and that's how everyone is, but like you want to try to accommodate and find it with them. That's the best feeling in the world, is when you look at an actor and go, it's kind of, I kind of think they're like this, and they're like, oh, I was feeling this. And I went, actually, that was something I wrote about off script just when I was taking notes. And you kind of like build this thing and you realize you're on the same page, and all of a sudden the character's just flying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When you're having to battle and struggle with all this bullshit that's going on behind the scenes, it hurts it. Yeah. It inevitably hurts. Now, luckily for them, Man on the Moon turned out good. It's a good movie.
Yeah.
Everyone in it's wonderful, and it works out. But it is one of those situations where you're just like, man, imagine the memories y'all could have had if you if you didn't have to think, oh, great, Tony's showing up today. Like, God.
Yeah.
That's the shit.
Yeah. And it's just like the thing that I was thinking about earlier. It's like, look, if you want to make that as part of your prep,
yes,
where it is you are whatever your character is, and you want to go spend 2 weeks with you and whoever wants to help you as part of this prep, and you are living every day as that person in that scenario, just to really get inside the headspace. Okay, that makes a lot of sense to me. Like, to live it, to like really truly like get into the character in that way and understand the character in that way. Okay, that makes a lot of sense to me.
Go be Tony Clifton at an open mic night and just bomb. You know what I mean? Like, just be an asshole and bomb, because people know that's what they're getting into when they pay for a ticket to that. Right. You know what I mean? Like,
it's like limit the casualties, if you know what I mean. Like do it in a controlled scenario where everyone's consenting of exactly what you're doing. Like that works. That makes sense. Yeah. And then like doing things like keeping the voice, you know, like if you're doing a character voice, keeping in the voice all day long. Okay, that's fine. Even things
the
like
walk, the physicality. It's like, sure, dude, keep it, but whenever you're offset, just let it go. Like,
it's again, it's like I think Daniel Day-Lewis is like kind of really, really famous for the fact that he's method acting. And again, like, he doesn't always play assholes. Like, you know, Abraham Lincoln, he's not an asshole in that movie. And I don't think he was an asshole on set. Yeah. So it's like, but then there are people where it's there, you know, I don't think that, you said his name earlier and I already forgot it. Friggin' Joker in Suicide Squad.
Jared Leto.
I don't think Jared Leto method acts for all of his movies. I think he method acts when he's an asshole.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't think Joaquin Phoenix method acts. He method acts.
Yeah, I don't think Jared Leto method acted on Dallas Buyers Club.
Right. It's
not,
like,
at least not famously.
Yeah.
Like, no one talked about that.
It's like, again, it's like it feels like this weird, like hall pass to be an asshole, and they're like, well, if I can, you know, and it's like, and I'm sure that's not how they think of it. But that's just how it feels to me. Yeah. It's like, you don't get to send your castmates disgusting shit in the
dead
mail.
Rats or whatever. Yeah, bullets. Like, it's like, this is weird, man.
Like you don't get to put them through psychological stuff. If you need to be there psychologically, be there psychologically. Don't do it to others. Yeah. Don't make them go through.
Don't make everyone else's life hard because you need it to be a better actor. It's like, no.
I hate that about there's certain directors who kind of think that way of like, okay, if I'm going to put if the story is they're in this freezing cold water, I'm gonna put my actors in freezing cold water.
Yeah.
Fuck you.
Yeah.
Like, fuck you. They're actors. They can act. That's what acting is.
Yeah.
Is I'm taking this thing that I am not, doing this thing that I am not in this place that does not exist here, and I'm pretending like it is real.
Yeah.
That's acting.
It's like, dude, like I said earlier, the whole thing is finding it with them. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's the journey. It's not your actor showing up doing exactly what they're going to do and then walking off. Like, best thing an actor can ever hear on set is, we got it. You guys want to try something? Yeah. You just want to do anything? Like, do a weird, funny one. Do one where you like stutter. You know what I mean? Like, just walk in the room and go, let's explore now.
Yeah.
And find it together. And I guarantee you, like 9 out of 10 times, the explore one is going to, if not be the thing you use, going to be the thing that leads you to something else you're going to use. Like,
totally.
You'll all
learn new things. Like, as a director, as an actor, you'll learn new things about that character.
And again, bring out the best in others first. Yeah. Like, that I think is the most poignant against the typical method acting thing you hear about. And I'm sure there's other people who method act, just no one talks about it because they're not being dickheads.
Yeah.
But I'm sick of, I never want to be in a situation like that where I have to like deal with an asshole method actor and I'm like, nope, I'm not doing it. It's not worth it.
I will, like, if I don't know where I will be like, in my career, where if that'll even be a thing. That being said, like, the older and older I get and the closer and closer I feel like I'm getting to that, the more and more I've like really set on the fact that's like, I don't think I'm going to allow method acting in anything close like that on a set that I work on. It's like, if you feel like you need that, then you're not working on, like, then this is not the production for you. Cause it's like, you're an actor. You don't need to.
Greta Gerwig famously has like the best sets. You know what I mean? Yeah. She plays music and she's fun and she dresses up with the cast for special days and stuff. Like, it's stuff like that where it's like, man, part of the director's job is making sure everyone gets through the day, like without wanting to kill each other. That's not their only job because they got a lot of stuff to work on, but it's their job to make sure people feel comfortable and available to come to them with questions or come to them with concerns or whatever. You know what I mean? It's in creating that environment on set. It's everyone's like, oh, it's the first AD's job. It's like it's the director's job. If my actor didn't feel like they could come to me and be like, hey, I don't know. I don't. Why would I be doing this? Yeah. Then I failed as a director. Right. I need an actor to sit there and question me because it's a partnership, man. Yeah. Like I don't know. It's just like Jim Carrey. Literally, there's a point where he's like, you have to make nice with him for the film. You know what I mean? Like it's like in this version, you have to. And Jim Carrey as Andy Kaufman's like, I'll do whatever you need, but like it's not. You're like. Yeah. Shut up. That's what the script is. When you agreed to do the movie, guess what? That was in there. And now that you've gone all crazy and decided that him and him weren't friends in real life, like, even though the guy who wrote all those bits with him is telling you they are, like, it's so weird to me.
Yeah. Hey, so, any other thoughts on method or Jim Carrey method in this? Because like then we can move on.
Yeah, I think I don't have much more other than I think watch both of these things. Like, especially if you're into like documentaries on making movies.
Well, because I still have some other thoughts about because like the things that I liked about Jim and Andy. It's like I thought a lot of the stuff about Jim Carrey, about his career, about what he thought that he had to do to become Jim Carrey, capital G or capital J, capital C. Like, those parts of that were fascinating. Yeah. Like that kind of stuff, fascinating. Yeah. Like to it felt like so revealing in a lot of ways, like for better and in many cases worse. Yes. Was fascinating and really interesting. And I'm like, I am glad that I'm actually just really glad from like a personal responsibility standpoint that like he wanted this to be released because because they talked about like that the studio did not want them to release this documentary because they didn't want Jim Carrey to look like an asshole. Yeah. Because Jim Carrey looks like a huge asshole after this. It's like, and not only from the method behind the scenes stuff, but honestly, the interview does not do him any favors. In my view,
there's a lot in that interview where I'm like, you're kind of a dick, dude. Like,
yeah, it's the other thing that frustrates me about him, just as a human being, is where he's like talking about like, you know, like I'm free from, you know, worry and like I'm cool with whatever the universe has for me. It's like I'm just floating through the universe and whatever comes and whatever doesn't. I'm like, yeah, it's really easy to say that when you have a $10 million check, Jim Carrey. Yeah. Like that's really easy to say, my guy.
When you don't actually have worries, right? Or at least not like monetary worries. Like,
don't get me wrong. Like, I am not saying his life is easy. I'm not saying he has to be a happy person. No, I'm not saying any of those things. I'm sure his life is and was very difficult in many ways that I can never understand. But at the same time, to just like, you know, this like
brush off the struggle of human existence.
Yeah, it's like it's just really easy for him to say a lot of these things as one of the most famous actors on the planet. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. As liar, as Ace Ventura, as the Mask, it's really easy to be like, yeah, I'm just like a speck of dust floating through the universe. Like, you know, if I die tomorrow, it's like, that's fine. It's like, okay, that's fine and good for you, Jim Carrey, who has millions of dollars to feed yourself, to feed your family, that you can pass down to future generations of, you know, I don't know if he has kids or not, to pass down to your kids if you have them. Like, that's easy for you, my dude. Yeah. But like, if I was a single mother who had kids to feed, and if my absence, you know what I mean? It's, that just...
Yeah. But that is frustrating to like, you're like, okay, super wealthy man. Yeah. Like,
I did appreciate how open and revealing and candid that was in many ways, because like, for better and worse, it's like you got to see, like, again, that kind of that he, you know, there's the quote from the movie where he's like, you know, I had to decide to like kill the old version of myself to become to make it. Like I had to. You either, I can't remember exactly how he phrased it. It's like you either kill the old version of yourself and become something new that is capable of making it, or like fake your way through it.
Yeah.
And like that is revealing and really deeply sad.
Yeah.
That even like whether that's true or not is different. The fact that he feels that way, that he had to do that to himself.
Yeah.
And for so he could cash that $10 million check that he wrote to himself.
Yeah.
Is really deeply, deeply sad.
Yeah.
And like, and I appreciate that again, that was so candid. And the other fascinating piece about this is he went directly from making Man on the Moon into playing the Grinch in Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
Yeah. Like
he went directly from one to the other. Wild.
Well, there's something poetic about him being on a movie set where he made everyone miserable for months to going onto a movie set where he was miserable for months.
Yeah.
Like there's something weirdly poetic about, like genuinely, like in a cosmic kind of way.
In
like,
a karmic.
Yeah.
Like
it's, I think that's interesting. I love The Grinch, but he has famously hated making that movie.
Yeah. And at the same time, it's like one of his most famous performances, one of his most beloved performances, like
one of his best, I would probably argue. Like,
I mean, like I think that is absolutely fascinating to like, again, like as a performer, it's like that rubber band quality that he has to go from the deepest, darkest version of himself to like one of his most beloved family friendly versions of himself. Fascinating. Yeah. Like utterly, utterly fascinating.
Damn, Jim Carrey.
Any other thoughts on Man on the Moon or
no? I just think watching these as a double feature is fascinating.
Yeah.
I watch Man on the Moon first, and then watch Jim and Andy, and kind of retroactively like have to go back and think about a lot of this is the way to go. I think that's really interesting.
As I did the exact same thing the first time I watched it. I've only seen Man on the Moon twice now, so it was the first time I watched it and watching it with you. I just didn't like Man on the Moon as much the second time I watched it. Like it hurts it in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Just because like you just know he's mistreating everybody around him and being a fucking creep like the whole time. Like again, the actually morally wrong piece is where he's talking to his Andy Kaufman's actual family members as Andy Kaufman's like.
Yeah.
Again, like I think there's obviously like they think that this is what's happening. They believe that this is what's real. And at the same time, it's like, yeah, but that's as a human being, as somebody stepping back, it just feels gross and weird and wrong.
Absolutely.
Anyway.
Movies.
So for the B segment. I figured we could just do kind of more, what's your Jim Carrey Mount Rushmore?
Oh, okay.
Whether it's characters or performances or just like movies. What's your Jim Carrey Mount Rushmore? I'm gonna pull out the letterbox for this one because I'm gonna struggle to remember everything. So we got 4.
I mean, I think like pretentiously, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
I was thinking similarly.
How the Grinch Stole Christmas. For me, I watched it again. I love that movie. I love that movie. I might have to pull out Letterboxd too.
See, I know what. Okay, The Truman Show is up there. Him as Truman, that was another thing that was fascinating about Jim and Andy, where he's talking about like every movie that I've been in feels like this mirror house version of my own life. Mm-hmm. And like The Truman Show, you can feel that with that one.
Yeah.
Like that feels really right and real, you know? I think it's definitely for me, Truman Show, Eternal Sunshine, The Mask, probably. Like I love
The Mask is up there for me. I really like it.
Part of me wants to put Ace Ventura. That movie has aged like fucking milk.
Like bad.
Man, like there was a long time where I really loved that movie.
Look, don't get me wrong. There's funny bits and it's a funny comedy, but it is aged to the point that it is like heavily featured in a documentary on transgender representation in film, which is a very good documentary on Netflix that you should watch. I'm trying to think. I mean, I watched Dumb and Dumber a lot as a kid.
Yeah.
I really like him in the Sonic movies. Like, I think he kind of carries.
A movie that I've seen weirdly like a bunch of times is Fun with Dick and Jane. I don't think that movie is great.
Yeah.
But I do really like it for what it's like almost how I feel about Solo, where it's like I just like it. Like it's not good, but I do like it.
Like if we're talking just him showing up in a thing and the thing itself, Anchorman, like his little bit in Anchorman. Like, I love Anchorman.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, probably Eternal Sunshine because that movie's like perfect.
Phenomenal.
Like, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, The Mask, and then it can kind of vary. I think a little bit. Cable Guy's pretty funny.
You would throw Truman Show up there?
I've only seen Truman Show once.
Oh, okay.
I really liked it.
I've seen that movie like a billion times.
Yeah, I really liked it when I watched it, but I've only seen it one time.
Oh, so good. Yeah. Mine's Truman Show, Mask, Eternal Sunshine, and you know what? Fuck it. Fun with Dick and Jane.
There you go.
That's my Jim Carrey Mount Rushmore.
Yeah.
Because again, it's like that one. I think he's fun in that movie because it's not like a absolutely insane performance. It's really funny, and I like his performance is really funny. I think that movie's amazing.
Yeah.
But like I do like that movie.
Yeah.
It's very like I think there's quite a bit to like about the movie. Not perfect, but I think there's quite a bit. It's very like it feels really appropriate for, you know, the Great Recession, and like, you know, it has a lot to do with like these everyday people being brought down to their lowest version where they literally become fucking bank robbers.
Yeah.
It's fun. I like that movie quite a bit.
I'll have to watch that one. Never seen it.
Yeah, it's like not great.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna. This is not something I'm going to defend to my last day, but I do like that one quite a bit.
Alrighty, that's a good little lineup.
Recommendations?
You go first.
No.
Damn it. Okay, I guess neither of us have been.
Hey man, you've been to the movies a bunch recently. I haven't even fucking left the house.
That is true. Well, a bunch by standard. It's
okay. I got one.
When is this episode coming out?
I got it. I got one.
Okay, I'm gonna recommend a couple things then, just like loosely, just throwing them out.
Pop off, King.
The Boy and the Heron, the new Miyazaki film, really good. There's some people kind of backing on it. I don't know. Y'all are wrong. It's a good movie. And then Gremlins. You should watch Gremlins. I went and saw that in the theater. I went and saw Die Hard in a theater.
Yeah.
There's a let's see. There's a series of short films on Hulu that I discovered today, of day of recording, but by Nash Edgerton. And it's about a guy who pranks a little too hard and gets people hurt. There's 3 of them. I've watched 2 of them. They're called Shark and Bear.
Interesting. Okay. I've not even heard of those.
No, I hadn't even heard of them. They're like 12 minutes, and then the next 2 are 8. I'll probably watch the other one soon.
Fascinating.
They're not like the greatest things ever, but they're like really darkly funny.
I'm into it. I'm into it.
They get kind of like Teresa Palmer's in one of them. Rose Byron is in one of them. Like,
oh yeah.
Like, and I'm sure there will be some third, because each one is him in a different relationship that he ruins with pranks in some way or another.
I'm into it.
And they involve a shark and a bear, and then the third one's called Spider. So I'm excited to see how that goes. Those are really fun. They're fun little shorts that I've been bumping with. But anyway,
yeah. I literally forgot it. Sitting here now. Oh yeah. Bad Times at El Royale.
I love that movie,
dude. Okay, I've only seen it a couple of times. I just rewatched it recently, and like I remember the reviews being like weirdly crummy for that movie. And I watched it again recently, and I could see the flaws that people complained about. I read a couple of reviews, and I was like, okay, I see what you're saying.
It's not perfect.
It's not perfect. I think the characters many of them are pretty thin, but I think there are I think the 2 main protagonists, I think they just nail so hard and are so good.
There's so many scenes with them. I mean, the singing scene where they're
so good, so good. I think I think that like the actual biggest problem for me is how kind of thin the main antagonist character is. I think he's a little thin. Other than that, like I think that movie, like there's so much to like about that movie. The style, the world, the structure, the look, the feel, the music, like all that. Like it is so dripping in style and creativity that I'm super into. It really feels like the continuation of Drew Goddard making another version of Cabin in the Woods.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I love that. I love Cabin in the Woods. Cabin in the Woods is like unimpeachably good.
Yeah.
And like I can see why this one has like
people don't love it.
People don't love it in the same way. I can understand that. But at the same time, like it is, I think it's so much better than people give it credit for. I think this, like, everything else that it's doing is so good. It's like, yes, the characters are a little thin, but it's like everything else is so good about it. Like the performances across the board are great. Like I just, oh man, I think that movie is like better than people give it credit. Not perfect, but man, I love Drew Goddard so much. I really want him to be making more than he's making.
Yeah.
Cause like I want another thing like this, another weird mystery box. Like, like it's like he was very much a part of that kind of, J.J. Abrams, Rat Pack.
Yeah.
It's like, Drew Goddard, J.J. Abrams,
Matt Reeves,
Watchmen.
Zack Snyder.
No, the other one.
Damon Lindelof.
Like all of these kind of like former lost compatriots.
Oh, this is such a weird aside. That is, Watchmen is still on HBO. For days, I have seen tweets about people going, they took Watchmen off and people freaking out. It's still on there. It was taken off because of a technical glitch and then put back up an hour later.
Yeah.
It is still there. Watch that show. Dude. It's great.
Yeah, fuck Bad Times at El Royale. Watch Watchmen, dude.
Anyway, sorry. I was losing my mind because I was like, I don't have any kind of following to get people to realize it's still on there.
Yeah. If you're gonna watch Watchmen, the show, don't watch the Zack Snyder movie first. Read it, or even honestly, you could watch a summary video on what happens in Watchmen.
But read it, because Watchmen's one of the greatest comic books of all time.
Yes,
it's perfect.
To make it easier for you to watch Watchmen, the show, which I think is like so fucking good. I wish more people watched it.
Yeah.
Watch Alt-Shift-X has a video called, I think it's just like Watchmen Explained.
Yeah.
Phenomenal explanation video. Like all of his videos are phenomenal. Go watch Alt-Shift-X. If you're into Game of Thrones, if you're into sci-fi, if you're into fantasy, go watch his videos. Are fucking great. But watch Watchmen Explained, the comic, and then watch the show, because that show's so good it's stupid.
Yeah.
Shout out Damon Lindelof.
Shout him out. He's he's great. I love him. Yeah.
Oh, Jesus. I mean, yeah, like there's so many people that came out of the show Lost. So many creative, insanely creative, great people that came out of that show.
Yeah.
And I absolutely love. And Bad Times at El Royale. Go watch it.
Yep.
It's pretty good. Pretty darn good.
Lots of stuff.
Anyways, so go watch all those stuff. Next week, or on Christmas Eve. So we decided to do something fun with this episode, to do an Andy Kaufman style bait and switch kind of thing.
And lie to everyone.
And lie. We just straight lied. We decided to, so we actually will have a mini-sode, our very first mini-sode about Jim Carrey's How the Grinch Stole Christmas. So watch out for that coming up Christmas Eve. Should be a fun one.
It'll be good.
It'll be our first test of these new mini-sodes, but we should have a lot more coming. So
a lot of topical stuff.
So yeah, keep an eye out for that. Go watch all the other things. Go watch Jim Carrey lose his fucking mind on screen. Go watch Die Hard and
The Boy and the Heron.
And all those other good things. Or don't. I don't know. Live your life.